What's up, thieves without honor? It is I, your favorite guy, the OG GM, coming to you live from a very sunny, lovely island off the coast of Costa Rica. Here on this morning, April 3rd, 2023, we've just survived WrestleMania weekend and Honor Amongst Thieves weekend. So is there anything going on in the world of our hobby that doesn't involve Honor Amongst Thieves or WrestleMania or Wizards of the Coast? No, not really. But let's get to the non-D&D related news first before we dive deep into everything that is Honor Amongst Thieves. EN Publishing has released a new adventure path for their 5th edition clone, Level Up 5e. They're just starting the Kickstarter out. It's called To Save a Kingdom. And they have been advertising as usual, the freck out of it. So if you want to get in on the ground floor of a Level Up 5e adventure path called To Save a Kingdom, you can check that out now over at EN World or their Kickstarter page. Edge Studio has released Embers of the Imperium. It's a geneticist system role-playing game based upon the board game Twilight Imperium. Are you a fan of Twilight Imperium? I am. I've played it a long time ago. I was not very good at it, but I have played it. This is a role-playing game based upon Twilight Imperium. So if you're a fan of that setting, here you go. It's coming from Edge Studios, who are the new people who do all the role-playing game stuff for Fantasy Flight Games. And finally, we have something coming out called Fablecraft. It's a digital-first RPG where you will recreate the tabletop gaming experience using an Inquire rules system and full integration of video, audio, and text chats. And they claim they are the very first people to ever do this. Digital first. You're not. I'm sorry, you're not the very first to do this. Monty Cook did this a couple years ago with Invisible Suns or Dark whatever, because that was also a digital video, audio, text role-playing game. So that means everybody who wants to play this game has to download the video stuff, download the audio stuff, run the text program, download all the digital stuff, as well as purchase the game, and all have it syncing up at the exact same time. History has shown us this will not work. But I give you an A for effort for trying, Riff Weave, but yeah, it doesn't work. But who knows? The world has changed, so maybe you can convince somebody to buy your product. All right, that's everything that's going on in the tabletop role-playing game world that doesn't involve Honor Amongst Thieves. Now, in the Honor Amongst Thieves adjacent merchandise, we have this interesting-looking action figure for a Displacer Beast. This is $40, and it is part of the new toy line. Doesn't say what it's made out of or its size. I think it's bigger than the normal action figure size. It's got at least a couple points of articulation. It looks like they just took a leftover cat thing and whatever. I mean, it could be cool. I need to see it live, to see what it really looks like. We also have a board game coming out for Honor. We've got the really awful looking action figures coming out. We've got the Stuffied coming out because that's what everybody wants. And then speaking of the really crappy looking action figures, we've already talked about these. These are the action figures that are coming out for Level Up Honor Amongst Thieves. Notice that they look absolutely nothing like the characters from the movie. And the two people of color, Michelle Rodriguez and Will Smith's kid, are both white. White. That looks nothing like Hugh Grant. That looks nothing like Chris Pine. This looks nothing like Michelle Rodriguez. I don't really know what Will Smith's kid looks like, but I did see, After Earth, and yeah, pretty sure he is not that his skin color. That is, yeah. So yeah, let's not even talk about these because it's going to get me in trouble. There is also the announcement of Minecraft Dungeons & Dragons, because for the very first time ever, you can do D&D type stuff using Minecraft, as long as you ignore Minecraft Dungeons and the 20-plus official and semi-official and unofficial mod packs that have been made for Minecraft that involve D&D in some way. As long as you ignore Minecraft Dungeons, and as long as you ignore those, Minecraft Dungeons & Dragons is out. It is not a complete game. It is a DLC game with about 10 hours of footage and gameplay. It's mostly cutscenes with a little gameplay. You can't do the full Minecraft experience. You can't, break things or whatever. It does run on a slightly different engine, but it's basically, if you've played the Minecraft Choose Your Own Adventures that are on Netflix, it's kind of like that, just longer. And then, of course, we had the D&D Direct, where they told us everything they had planned for this year and last year, and announced what their plans for 2024 were for D&D, which was they didn't say anything at all. All we know is that they have product coming out this year. They have 1, 2, 3, 4 things coming out for the rest of the year officially. We have the Bigsby presents Glory of the Giants, because they've already done the Dragon book, which actually was well received. So people are like, okay, this one might not be so bad. Then we've got the Fendelver and Below, the Shadowed Obsolescence. This is taking the Fendelver setting for the Mines of Fendelver, the very first D&D adventure, and considered by many to be the best D&D adventure that Wizards of the Coast made, and turning it into an entire campaign setting. So is this going to be the campaign setting of 6th edition Fendelver, which I guess is or is not in the Forgotten Realms? Maybe, maybe not. They do claim that they are finally going to explain the running obelisk thing that has been running through every D&D adventure since day one. It was supposed to be a huge build-up after Tomb of Annihilation to explore the obelisk and how they connect to Vecna. If you've seen the alternative worst Forgotten Realms adventure that my friend made that I talked about last year, he basically took all the ideas and turned them into a brand new adventure. And I guess Wizards of the Coast was listening, because they're like, hey, this guy already did all the work, so why don't we just make that now the official thing that was always meant to happen? So the obelisk will lead up to Vecna, which will lead up to Planescape, and then going forward in 2024, 6th edition will have something maybe to do with Planescape and Vecna. Or maybe not. Or there's going to be a year-long adventure that features Planescape and Vecna in order to introduce 6th edition to the world. Kind of like what they did with the Avatar trilogy. Everybody remember the Avatar trilogy, when they used the Avatar trilogy to explain the how the world was changed post-edition shifts, which was a horrible adventure, but a great way to explain while the world was different and rules were different. So maybe that's what they're going to do, a year-long thing that explains why one D&D is completely different than 5e. But don't worry, kids, it's still backwards compatible. Even though everything we've seen shows us it's not. Yes, and they're going to take a year, maybe. I don't know, because at no point in time did Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins, yay, Chris Perkins is still alive, actually tell us what they have planned for 2024. We don't know the name of any product coming out in 2024. We don't have any release dates for 2024. So we still don't actually know what day one D&D is going to be available. Why am I talking like this? I don't know. We still do not know, Jeremy Crawford, what day in 2024 the physical, finished, final copy of whatever one D&D/6th edition is going to be will be available for the hungry mobs, all 5 of you, to purchase next year, because you didn't actually tell us anything. You just told us, hey, remember the said stuff we were going to make? We're making it. And speaking of stuff they claim they're going to make and actually made, we got to see a sneak peek of the legendary Wizards of the Coast Hasbro virtual tabletop for Dungeons & Dragons. And so far, I have not read one single good review, because all we saw basically was the 4 or 5 people play through an AI-generated procedural, this is what we think it's going to look like when it's done, but the computer is not actually powerful enough to run it on the Unreal Engine thingy. So that this was sort of wasn't the product, because the product is still in alpha. This is what we think the product's going to look like when it's done. And basically what you saw was a table with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people all looking at computer screens and occasionally saying something. Now, if anybody's tried to even use D&D Beyond at a game, they know that Wizards of the Coast software and D&D Beyond and VTTs are only as good as your internet and your computer. I have been playing in a VTT game now for about 2 years, running every Monday night, and I can tell you without question, every Monday for the past 2 years, there's at least one or more issues with the VTT. And the fact you have so many different people with so many different internet connections all trying to use the exact same thing at the exact same time, it doesn't work. Now, you can don't have to take my word for it. You can go out there and look for all the reviews yourself. Not a single positive review of watching 4 people look at computer screens and occasionally seeing pictures, digitally generated AI pictures of what they think the final product will actually look like. So, don't get your socks in an uproar now, but things are not looking great for the VTT. But who knows? They have plenty of time to change it because they didn't give us a release date. They just said, in typical Wizards of the Coast embracing of Scott Steiner math, it's out there somewhere, and we are working on it. Also, we met several new and familiar faces from Wizards of the Coast during the D&D Direct, and apparently nobody at Wizards of the Coast has a normal job. There is no Jane from accounting in Wizards of the Coast. Everybody is an executive or a vice president or a digital president or an executive producer. Nobody is just Steve, the copy editor, or, Karen, the secretary. Erwin, the guy who waters the plants and cleans the fish tank. Now, as you know, a certain movie premiered on April 1st. Honor Amongst Thieves. Were there any April 1st shenanigans related to Honor Amongst Thieves? Yes, they were, but not as many as I expected. But there are some stories coming out of young rapscallions doing rapscallion kind of things in the movie theaters in and around the world. The movie is receiving A- reviews. Generally, everybody who's seen it has the exact same thing to say. It's okay. It's fun. It's harmless. There's some good scenes. I laughed. It was fine. Whatever. Currently, it looks like it's going to close Monday at 36 million opening weekend box office. 70 million worldwide. And that includes China. Now, I want you to think about that, because you would think initially a $35 million opening weekend, $75 million if you count China, is good. But actually, it was predicted to make 25 to 40 million over opening weekend. So it fell a little short of predicted because it only made 35. And if you count China, it only made 70 million. So 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. So that's, 4 million China. 4 million China. That is awful for the Asian market to only pull in 4 million or whatever it was, That's awful. I mean, your typical opening weekend in Asia is usually 100 million, if not more. Wandering Earth, technically still the number one box office film in the world, made like 80 million, 90 million first day in China. And is still raking in billions of dollars. So while you might think at first 35 million domestic is good, considering they were like, yeah, we're lucky if it's going to make 40 million. So it fell short of, this is the best it can do, 40 million, which is a lot in normal everyday terms, but in studio terms, no, it's not a lot, guys. It's actually disappointing, and we're hearing a lot of people say that's actually a disappointing opening weekend, especially since it was bare minimum you could 40 million, and you couldn't even clear 40 million. In order for it to break even, it needs to make $600 million. And in order for Hasbro and Paramount to see a profit, it needs to make $800 million by the time it ends its run next week and goes directly to digital. So yeah, things are not looking good. Now there are stories. Here we go. Here we get to the stuff coming out about inconsistencies in the movie, and not like continuity inconsistencies, like what's that coffee cup doing there, or not like, no, that's not how it works in the game inconsistency, because that is still going on. There are still people upset about her. No, the inconsistencies are what people are saying about certain scenes in the movie. And we're going to get into that in a separate story because I wasted enough of your time. So if you appreciate this content, let me know. If you don't appreciate this content, let me know. Are you going to go see Honor Amongst Thieves? Or any of these other stories interesting to you? Do you even care? Or am I just pontificating to an empty audience and a cat? Anyways, if you haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to subscribe. Help me hit 2,000 subs by the end of 2023. And if you're feeling generous on this lovely spring morning, head on down to my home of my product for now, Big Geek Emporium, and check out issue number 10, A Minions on a Mission, featuring possibly stat blocks for some of my subscribers. Looking at you, DM Kurt. So, you need to go buy it to see how I've statted you out, Mar Hockman. Because, so head on over to Big Geek Emporium. $2 gets you Minions on a Mission, issue number 10, my first 5-room dungeon that I've published this year, featuring possibly stat blocks for some of you. I've been the OG GM. If you appreciate the nonsense that's coming out of my mouth, thank you very much for being part of this adventure. I'll talk to you later.